is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics is particularly weird these days. I know it's very difficult to get accurate information and get a read on what's going on in the world, and so this is the show for you. This is the show for you to help figure out what's going on. Raven, I'm so happy that you won. Congratulations. So yeah, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. Throw your questions in the chat. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm not here to roast anybody or fight with anybody. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, because politics is really weird these days, and there's a lot of governments doing a lot of really weird shit. GI says, so what's the end goal with Trump? If you are at all aware, GI, of like the kind of government that they have in Russia right now or Hungary, where there's really no, it's basically a dictatorship. It's basically a fascist dictatorship. That's what they want. They want the people that have a lot of money to be the new kings and queens, and the rest of us will be serfs, basically. Hey, Lucy. Hey, Estrada. Good to see you again. Estrada, I feel like the most of the USA has become politically conscious after Trump's inauguration. I wish that was the case, Estrada, but I forget who said it originally, but somebody was like, the breakdown in American politics is not Democrat versus Republican. It is person that is paying attention and person that is not paying attention to what's going on. And so, yeah, I would hope that people are aware of what's going on. I I believe that there's not enough. I believe that not enough people are engaged, not enough people are following, and ergo, you know, I think that we should all be doing the work of making sure that everybody is engaged and following along with what the government is doing. Yeah, I saw some clips of that too, Lucy, and boy, oh boy, that was, yeah, eye roll up to fucking heaven. But welcome everybody to the live stream. My name is Jarrett. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. Cece, do you think it was wrong what they did to Jimmy Kimmel? Yes, Cece, 100%. So, there's been a lot of talk about like what free speech and what the First Amendment actually means. What it is at its core is the government cannot punish you for the things that you say. And that is what happened in the case of Jimmy Kimmel. Is the government said that if ABC Disney does not do something about taking Kimmel off the air, then the FCC is going to take a look at their license and potentially not renew their license and maybe block their merger that they got coming up. And that is, that is as close to the government punishing you for speech as you can get. John Bradley says, I thought Kimmel was coming back. Only one collection of stations is still holding out. Yeah, I mean he's gonna be back. They're gonna film his show and they're gonna air it. It's just as it might not be in every district in the country. Like there might, I don't know if Nexstar or Sinclair are still holding out and are not going to air it, and I don't know what the recourse is there, but he'll be back. Jack Jack says, "Are you a fan of Jimmy Kimmel? Did you watch him?" Yeah, he's fine. There was a period of my life when I was watching a lot of late nights, talk shows, and I think I kind of like reached my limit. So yeah, but he's a good comedian. I've seen him, a lot of his stuff I've really enjoyed. The fucking Ben Affleck and fucking Matt Damon videos were pretty clutch, even though those were like over a decade ago. All right, Cece says, yeah, I saw Pam Bondi saying she wants to limit hate speech after the whole Charlie Kirk incident. I mean, what Pam Bondi is saying there is that she wants to limit speech from people on the left, and that they get to define what hate speech is, and they're going to say that hate speech is anybody who is saying negative things about Donald Trump or or their ilk, their conservative influencers and shit like that. Kay says, a decade? I'm not that old, am I? I mean, that was me guessing. I don't know. Somebody wants to give it a Google and find out when I'm fucking Matt Damon came out. Ali N says, what are your thoughts on the midterms at this point? The same as they have been for a long time, Ali. It is up to us to do the work of winning the midterms, and that I don't give a shit about following the polls. I just say let's do the work. Let's go for every seat. Let's Let's do as much as we can and get other people to do as much as they can and leave it all out on the field. I am not going to allow polls to either make me pessimistic or optimistic. I just say do the work. Do the work. Aiden Allison says, what is a politic? Politics is the means by which we discuss how our government is acting and what the various politicians are saying that they're going to do and whether they do it. R. Schwab says, vote red. That's not a question, R. Schwab. And so that means you're out of here. Cece says, do you think Netanyahu is not an honest person? I think it is clear that he is not an honest person. I think the evidence is in that he is not an honest person. The dopamine farmer says, can someone with no money be president? They can, but it would be very difficult because you need money to run a campaign. And so, but yeah, there could 100% be a person with no money who wins the presidency. John Bradley says, what other liberal influencers are you a fan of? I like basically all of them, but I think that none of them are perfect. So like I like Austin Archer and Kat Burbank, I think is her name, and Dean and Hassan and Destiny and Vosh. Like they all have their positives, and I don't think that I have a favorite among them. Maybe Kat Burbank. I like her. But yeah, I think anybody that is getting the information out there about politics and getting young people engaged in it and is making it cool, I am for that. Sam Cedar's cool too. I like her. Cece says, do you like Candace Owens? No, 100% I do not. Candace Owens is a conspiracy theorist. She's currently being sued by the president of France for insisting multiple times and not backing down that his wife is a man. She is cuckoo bananas. She is a fraud. She's a liar. Allie says, do you support AOC? I do. I like AOC. Dylan the Santa Boy says, don't leave I'm Really Important off that list. He's so good. I don't know if I know who I'm Really Important is. Chucky Arla says, you stoked for the rapture today? Yeah, I'm excited to either go to heaven or be left on earth with all of the least annoying people. Sabrina says, would you ever do live debates? I would do a debate, Sabrina, but I don't philosophically believe that debates are productive. If I could debate Ben Shapiro, I would, but there's no debating Ben Shapiro because he's a liar. And so, I would take the opportunity to try to tell him to his face that he's a piece of shit. But, I still think that there's, it's valuable for me to tell him he's a piece of shit, but I don't know if debates themselves are valuable. Pat Buchanan says, Candace is terrible. In the same breath, AOC is great, LOL. I mean, they're different. Candace Owens is a conspiracy theorist and a political hack, and AOC is a progressive elected official who is doing really good work in the government. Jack says, thoughts on Trump's announcement on the cause of autism? I mean, my guess is that Tylenol did not bribe him enough, and that either they're going to reverse that decision if Tylenol gives him some campaign donations or buys some of his cryptocurrency, or there will be some, thing that you take with the Tylenol that RFK Jr. or Dr. Oz are going to be selling on their websites, and then people are going to go buy that to take with their Tylenol to save their children from autism or some shit like that. One Cool Tom says, he likes lefties 100%, so he will delete me. So goodbye, all. Peace to my American brothers and sisters. I don't know what you mean by that, One Cool Tom. So I guess no one will miss you. Goodbye. Solip says, iHerb, which is owned by Dr. Oz, sells the folic acid supplement that they recommend. Yep, see, there you go. Cece says, do you think the circumstances under which Brigitte Macron met her husband were odd? Teacher-student. I mean, yes, anything where there's like a power dynamic like that, be it teacher-student or, boss-employee, all the Pornhub categories, where it is a person who is more powerful because of their age or position, potentially exploiting the more impressionable person or the person of the weaker side of the dynamic. Like, obviously that shit is sketchy, but what Candace Owens is doing is not calling out a weird power dynamic age gap relationship. She is saying that is a man and I am going to expose it even at my own legal peril. Oy, oy, oy. All right, somebody whose name I can't pronounce because I don't know what that letter is, says, do you support Israel or Palestine? I support the citizens of both of those countries, and I'm against the governing bodies of both of those countries. John Bradley says, every excuse in the books to take the focus off of the fellow with the island files. Yeah, potentially. Tap 2001 says, so you don't believe taking Tylenol while pregnant will increase a chance of autism for the baby? It's not about what I believe. Tap, like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not out here doing double-blind trials. But the vast majority of medical experts and scientists believe that Tylenol has no relation to giving a child autism in the womb. And so I trust the science. I trust the experts. Mary Stark says, why is Trump never confronted over his lies and imaginary beliefs? Because the people who would hold him accountable are all either on board with him or scared of him. So the Republican Congress, the judiciary, other nations that potentially want to come to agreements with America, like trade agreements and shit like that. Yeah, they're either scared or they're on board because they're fascists as well. AJ says, but if he said it, then it's true, right? What are you referring to, AJ? Sabrina says, you don't think Candace Owens is authentic when it comes to Charlie Kirk? I mean, I don't know what her... I heard that she was like crying her eyes out when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So, I mean, I'm sure that they were friends or something, or, potentially, yeah. But I don't know. I would never doubt that somebody's tears at somebody else's death are, fraudulent or anything. But yeah, just because she's a liar and a con artist does not mean that she's lying about everything. Let's see here. Sabrina says, you don't think Candace Owens is authentic because she's saying the government is lying and covering it up. Yeah, that is 100% bullshit. The Trump government is covering up the truth around the Charlie Kirk assassination. I don't buy that at all, Candace Owens. If anything, what the government is doing is overhyping the assassination and using it to go after their political enemies, as opposed to actually trying to solve the problem of political violence and divisiveness. They are just throwing gasoline on the fire and saying the reason why Charlie Kirk was assassinated is because people are accurately calling our administration fascist. User a bunch of numbers says, why is Poland the safest country in the EU? Is it? I didn't know about that. Smart Sports says, overhyping, get the fuck out of here. I mean, do you think that I'm inaccurate there, Smart Sports, that the Trump administration is trying to escalate divisive rhetoric and potential political violence? Do you think that I'm inaccurate in that assessment, Smart Sports? Because I would happily engage with you on that. Sabrina says, yes, agreed. They're making it a left versus right problem. Jay Hin 512 says, what's your opinion on David? I know that's not politics, but current events, I don't know who this David fellow is. Yeah, I don't know who D4VD is. Yeah, what is that? So Smart Sports, if you look at every left-leaning politician or influencer or reporter or whatever, none of them are celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. None of them are claiming responsibility for it. None of them are calling for civil war. There might be random leftists on the internet who are or are not actual real people who are making fun of it or calling for civil war themselves or whatever. But the bases, the voters, are basically acting the exact same way. It's a bunch of random people on the internet making inappropriate jokes and calling for civil war and trying to escalate rhetoric between the two sides. The difference between the left and the right is that the people at the top of the right, the president, elected officials, influencers, professional debaters like Ben Shapiro and podcasters and news organizations, Alex Jones, Fox News, etc., what they are doing is assigning blame for the assassination to people on the left in rhetoric. Even before they found out who the shooter was, they were doing this. And they're openly calling for civil war. They're saying the left is the side of murder. They're saying, they are trying to attack you. They're trying to murder you and you need to protect yourself, blah, blah, blah. They are openly escalating the situation. They are openly calling for violence. Whereas the people on the top of the left, the politicians and reporters, etc., are not doing that. Do you think that any of that is inaccurate that I just said? All right, Mikey D says they don't need to assign the blame. The liberals are literally the ones to blame. That is inaccurate, Mikey D. Also, that's not a question, so you're out of here. I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Smart Start says the left is the side of murder. Well, there we go, Smart Sports. I was here trying to engage with you in good faith, and you rejected my olive branch. TJ Boston says one man shot Charlie Kirk because he wanted to silence CK's hateful speech. Maybe. I don't know what the person's motivation was who assassinated Charlie Kirk. Dylan J. King says, thoughts on the Chorus Media story by Taylor Lorenz. Taylor Lorenz has a habit of publishing quote-unquote journalism that is very specifically meant to undermine the Democratic Party or Democratic ideology, philosophy, influencers, people like that. So I find the whole thing kind of full of shit. You know, it's like the bigger story is dark money funding right-wing propaganda channels, and she decides to paint an incubator that is trying to elevate left-wing content creators as the same thing as that. Like, it's complete and utter nonsense, you know. So yeah, I don't trust her. I don't trust the reporting on it. Everything that I've read about it makes it seem like it's a nothing burger. Mr. Pink says, so what do you call the last 12 years of the left calling for violence against all conservatives? That's not a thing that happened, Mr. Pink. You can't find me any notable left-wing content creators or influencers or politicians who are calling for violence against the left. But I can show you a bunch of examples of right-wing politicians and right-wing content creators and right-wing influencers calling for violence and trying to escalate tensions between the two sides. Yeah, you know, maybe you can find me random anonymous people on the internet who say that they're lefties and that are calling for violence or are celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination, but that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the higher ups. I'm talking about the people with really big megaphones who are doing this on the right but not on the left. Sav writes poetry, says, please tell me you're a Democrat. I am. Jimmy Wakefield says, you're a liar and you're blocked. I'll tell you one thing I'm not lying about is that I fucked your mom last night. Alrighty. Jamison says, why does communism always lead to tyranny? There has never been communism that has led to tyranny. There has only been tyranny that has led to tyranny under the name of communism. Right. Case M63 says, nobody buying that line of bullshit. What do you mean? What did I say? Or what did somebody else say that you think was bullshit? Ali says, do you know what happened to Tom Homan? Tom Homan, before he was in office, was the subject of an FBI sting where he accepted a $50,000 bribe to guarantee government contractors to a business that actually ended up being the FBI. So the FBI has him dead to rights. He took the $50,000. It was in a Kava bag from the fast food chain Kava. But then when Trump's people got into the FBI, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they dropped the case because Tom Homan is part of their team. And so even though he was blatantly doing something illegal, accepting bribes in order to give people government contracts, the Trump administration is canceling that investigation because he's on their team, because he's one of their guys. Oh, excuse me. Jack says, do you believe some of the BLM protests turned into riots all those years ago? Feels like forever ago. I mean, a bunch of them did, but if you look at the reporting of it, it is clear that there were a bunch of right-wing agitators who were escalating all of the violence and property destruction. There's a bunch of articles on this. I do remember reading, but I have not been able to find it. An article from back then that said that according to an FBI assessment, 90%, something like 90% of the violence at all of the BLM protests was either instigated or just totally done by right-wing agitators. Likely says, Trump told the UN he settled 7 wars. Can you name them, please? I can't because it's fake. It's fake. S.E. Morgan says 93%. Can you link me that article, S.E. Morgan? Because I was trying my best to find it and I couldn't. Let's see here. Scotty says, I'm from Minneapolis and that is 100% true here. What is 100% true here, Scotty? Let's see here. Nivimat says, was Charlie Kirk a racist in your opinion? I don't know if he was or not, but he said a whole bunch of things that racist people also say. R.C. Dokrat says, why don't they see the hypocrisy and why are they allowed to grift? Because the information, the way that people get information about the government has been captured by the billionaire class and the Republican Party. So we are all separated into our various algorithms where people are being sold exactly the kind of propaganda that they are susceptible to. And so we are a heavily segmented population. There's no more monoculture. Everybody's getting the exact right propaganda and misinformation to convince them to either not vote for Democrats or vote for Republicans. All right. Thank you, Jeep guys. I appreciate that. What's up, Lisa? Good to see you again. User Butcher number says, do you think there were FBI agents embedded during January 6th? I would not be surprised if there was like 1 or 2, but I do not believe the FBI was behind January 6th. Sabrina says, what can we do to make sure we are informed with accurate information? I think you need to make sure that you're taking everything that you see on social media with a massive grain of salt. Everything you see on social media needs to be checked and triple checked. It is most likely going to be bullshit. But yeah, you got to avoid right-wing media because right-wing media has been proven time and time again to be the least accurate type of news that you can consume. Some estimates put it at like 20% accurate. And other than that, just have a nice varied media diet. Use a news aggregator like Ground News or the Reddit news feeds, where you're getting a little bit of information from a lot of different sources. Dylan J. King says, what do you think the future of the GOP is post-Trump? They're going to continue to be radical extremists until it is no longer politically viable for them. When America serves the Republican Party the sort of electoral consequences that they deserve for all the shit that they have been up to for the past like 2 decades or so, then they will change. But after Trump, there's going to be a big fight over who gets to inherit the base. My guess is that it's probably going to go to one of the Trump kids because the name is much more powerful than any of the politicians who are trying to vie for that title. Like J.D. Vance has 0 riz, so I'm not really too concerned about him actually winning any elections based on his own merit. The Urban Canvas says LGBT and all the fake issues were created by the ruling class to keep people from both sides fighting. I mean, LGBTQ is not a fake issue. Like, there are real people in the LGBTQ community who are really suffering from real persecution. The issue is blaming our problems on the LGBTQ community or on trans kids or immigrants or even on Republican voters or Democratic voters or progressive voters or centrist voters or whatever, when the issue is the Republican Party and the billionaire class that is working with them. Right, user a bunch of numbers says, do you think Nancy Pelosi is guilty of insider trading? I think that almost everybody in government is doing insider trading. Nancy Pelosi is just the only Democrat who was stupid enough to go out there and say that it was not that big of a deal. But Rick Scott is out there with his whole fucking ass saying that politicians need to be able to insider trade or they'll be so poor, is what he said. So yeah, the Republican Party is fully in control of the government right now. Josh Hawley and a bunch of Democrats have a bill to make insider trading by people in the government no longer acceptable. And they even put a carve out in there for Donald Trump. They said, oh, Trump can do it, but nobody else can. And the Republicans are still blocking it. They're still fighting it. This is a bipartisan piece of legislation, and the Republicans are in charge, and they could be passing it right now. The only party that is sincerely trying to get the government to stop insider trading is the Democratic Party. Jack says, what's the political opinion you used to have but now don't feel the same way? I used to feel like we should not be giving people welfare who are spending money on drugs and alcohol. If you are taking taxpayer dollars, then you should not be spending that money on things that are not essential, you know? But I discovered through a little bit of research that trying to stop people from using government funds for non-essential things costs more money than just letting them do that. And so now I'm like, yeah, fucking do that. Also, being poor fucking sucks. Like, yeah, you know, have a drink every now and again. Like, who gives a shit? So yeah, there's where one political opinion of mine that changed. All right. Allie says, will Homan go to jail when the Trump administration is gone? Potentially. Dustin Paris says, politics doesn't matter, it's about to collapse. Wow, that is exactly what a Republican troll would say, Dustin Paris. Chad says, that's a good take. Ooh, I say so many. I hope it was one of mine. Sauceboss says, do you think there's any truth about Tylenol and autism, or is Trump just lying like usual? He's lying. There's no scientific consensus around that. Every expert is saying that Tylenol is completely fine to take. Jack says, can you explain why it costs more money to stop people from spending welfare on drugs? I'm not smart. No, you're perfectly smart, Jack, I'm sure. So basically, you would need to drug test everybody that is on welfare. And testing people on welfare costs more money than just letting those people have welfare. There is, and you know, this is actually part of a larger structure, Jack, that I have had my eyes open to over the past like decade or so of all the ways that we are trying to keep poor people from wasting government resources. actually costs more money than just giving it to people. So the best way that we can solve homelessness is not shelters or food kitchens. It is just giving people homes. And the American people is really toxic. The American people are hostile to that idea because they hate the idea of somebody getting something for free when you had to work for it. It's the same thing with student loan forgiveness, where people are like, "I paid my student loans. Why are you not having to pay your student loans?" But the end result is like, if it's better for everybody, just let them fucking have it. You know, it's like, if it's better for you for that person to get a free thing, then just let that person have a free fucking thing. You know? All right, Likely says, conservatives said that Turkish should be kicked out of NATO. Why did they say that? Do you agree? I actually don't know. I didn't hear anything about that, Likely, so sorry about that. Sunshine Wildflower says, how about drug testing everyone who's not on welfare? Yeah, let's see how those fucking results come in. User a bunch of numbers says, should the mayor of Dearborn be removed from office? I don't know who that is or what they did. East meets Westy Bestie says, FYI, autism was discovered 12 years before Tylenol was invented, developed. Yes, East meets Westy Bestie, but that, unfortunately, I don't think is as convincing of an argument as people want it to be, because what the argument is not that Tylenol caused autism and that there was no autism before. The argument is that your child is more likely to become autistic if you take Tylenol while you're pregnant. And so while I do find that data points to be interesting, I don't think it's going to convince anybody. Delano says, should a candidate set aside internal moral standards in the interest of aligning with poll data? I don't think so, Delano. I think that what we're looking for now in politics is authenticity. And the American people can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. And so even if what you are saying is not what the majority of people agree with, it is still in your best interest to just do what you believe is right. We saw this during the 2008 election, where Barack Obama was in, purple districts, red districts, and he was talking to people who would say to him, I don't agree with you, but you seem like a good, authentic guy, so you got my vote. Oglay says, at what point should we start building guillotines? Well, I don't condone any kind of violence or retribution or property destruction. So, but if you want that to be your hobby, it could be a very fulfilling hobby. You could sell them on Etsy or something. Likely says, who's the Democratic nominee? I don't know. Jack says, do you think people who vote for a third party are wasting their vote? Yes, 100% Jack. Until we have ranked choice voting, third party votes are just spoiler candidates, ego-driven cash grabs. Right. User bunch of numbers says, have you heard of Tommy Robinson imprisonment for free speech? Tommy Robinson? No, I don't know anything about that. RC Doak Rut says, why is there nothing being done that there is no way Trump won all the swing states? So RC, there were what are called soft audits, where they sort of like randomly pick a district and make sure that the electric voting machines equal what that box of votes says, and all of the soft audits match. All of the statistical anomalies that suggest that there was some stealing of votes in the swing states are, you can sort of counteract all of those with different statistical analyses. The Rockland County case, I think, is really interesting, and I think we need to wait and see how that turns out. But at the moment, there is no substantive data that votes were changed in those swing states. It makes a lot of sense. The polls were neck and neck. He won basically within the margin of error. There was an incumbency bias that was felt around the globe, so people were mad at whoever was in charge, whether they were left-wing or right-wing, whether they were American or from some other country. And there was billions and billions of dollars of misinformation and propaganda pushed in to convince people to either not vote or vote for Republicans. It makes sense. It all makes sense. Delano says, any commentary on recent J.B. Pritzker activities defending Chicago, etc.? I mean, I don't know what J.B. Pritzker did, but the fact that the Trump administration fucking completely chickened out, completely fucking weenied out of going to Chicago and instead decided to go to a city in a red state instead, one that was going to be more amenable to the military being there, I think he fucking nailed it. I don't know what he did, but good for him, I guess. QN says, what happened to all the bombshell witnesses from Trump's impeachment? I don't know what you mean by that, QN. Those people are still out there. They were being harassed by, Trump officials and shit like that. Estrada says, I heard the reason they use autism to demonize because it's a spectrum. Interesting, Estrada. I don't know if that's a real thing or a bit, but yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Cat Blue says, research the ETA. Your answer is not necessarily right. Can you elaborate, Cat Blue? What did I say that you think was inaccurate? Right. The ETA. East meets Westy Bestie says, have you seen Tim Walz is running for governor again? And he's had a full glow up, looks 10 years younger. I have not seen that, but good for Tim Walz. I think he's a good guy. S.E. Morgan says 93% peaceful. Sorry, I was wrong. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. That is, I did see that article as well. But the one I'm looking for is very specifically FBI finds 90% of violence and property destruction caused by right-wing agitators. I believe it was the New York Times, and maybe that they scrubbed the article or something, but I know I read it, but I have not been able to re-find it. Fog War Production says the people that used the guillotine were unalived by it eventually. Oh, is that historically accurate? Fog War Production? I did not know that. Let's see here. Scrolling down the bottom, S.E. Morgan says, all I got was no real percentage was found. Yeah, same. Let's see here. Malaya says, tired from celebrating. Celebrating what, Malaya? Are you trying to insinuate that I celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination? Because all of my live streams are still available. You can go fucking look at them. I did nothing of the sort. Fog War Production says, there's a reason why Robespierre was sent to the guillotine face up. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I need to look more into that. Dan Blackroyd, interesting how MAGA espouses states' right, yet criticizes Pritzker for defending them. Yeah, I mean, you know exactly what I know, Dan Blackroyd, that the Republican Party delights in their own hypocrisy, because then we call out their hypocrisy and they go, ha, you're triggered, libs. Ty Sean says, what party do you think will win the midterms? I'm not about making predictions, Ty Sean. What I am about is saying you should do some work to elect the people that you want to get elected in the midterms. You know, I'm working my ass off to make sure that Democrats fucking sweep the midterms, House and Senate. I'm doing a ton of work. I don't care if the polls come out tomorrow and say that Democrats have a 100% chance of taking back the Senate and the House. I'm still going to do more work, because 100% is not good enough for me, man. I want every one of those fucking seats. I want every vote that's fucking available. Alrighty, Uperlar says, in your opinion, is the work being done on the Democratic side? In your opinion, is the work being done on the Democratic side? I think that's all your question is, Uper. Yeah, I think so. You know, we need more people doing the work, and those people need to be doing more work. But it's the work is working. It's just we need more people to be doing it. Malaya says, why is the Democratic Party hemorrhaging Black, Hispanic, female, and young voters? Well, Malaya, I got to be honest. Based on your last comments, I find you to be pretty sus, but I will answer your question regardless. The Democratic Party is not currently hemorrhaging Black, Hispanic, female, and young voters. What happened during the 2024 election is that everybody, regardless of what's color or race or religion or sex, they were upset at inflation. And they believed the lie that it was the party in charge that was responsible for inflation. And so they voted for Republicans in order to bring prices down. Those prices are not coming down. In fact, the problem is getting worse faster than it was during the Biden administration. And now all those voters are basically coming back. Let's see here. Dan Blackwood said it's like the conservative stance on abortion. It's wrong unless I need it, in which case be cool. Exactly. Fog War Production says, I got the Vladimir Putin history obsessive autism. My mom was on heavier shit than Tylenol. Yeah, you know, thank God she wasn't on Tylenol, I guess. Boopat says, what about the lynching of Trey Reed, the ruled self-harm, his arms and legs were broken? I didn't read that his arms and legs were broken. I'm waiting to hear. I heard that the family decided to hire their own autopsy and investigator into that, and I was waiting to hear what they found. I know the government said that it seemed like a suicide, but you know, it's a fucking tragedy, man. You know, this is the consequence of the Republican Party continuing to say things to radicalize their base and continue to lean into Christian nationalism and white nationalism, and them not suffering electoral consequences for doing that. Because they continue winning elections. They continue winning elections despite being worse, despite being the cause of this increase in political violence and divisiveness. They keep on winning elections. And until they don't, they will not stop doing that. Alrighty. Santino says, Democrats need to stop protecting non-citizens over American citizens. Democrats don't do that, Santino. I don't know what you're talking about. J-Max says, why is there no cap on age to be president? When we wrote the Constitution, average lifespan was like 35 years old. So they didn't think it would be a problem that 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds would be running for president or holding on to their Supreme Court justice seats until, they were ripped out of them by the cold hand of death. And so, yeah, I'm down for that being a new thing, but Republicans are not going to do that. So you should vote for Democrats if that's something that you want. Poppy Harlow says, how do we stop a third Trump turn? Surely he will run again. He is definitely going to try to stay in office until he dies. How he tries to do that, I'm not 100% sure, but he will try. What do we do about that? That's what I call the work, Poppy Harlow. And so if you want to know what the work is, check out the link in my bio. Go to my links page. It's on my Discord, a thread called The Work. Basically, we all need to be doing a lot of different things to try to remove the political power and put political pressure on the people who actually have power right now. Right. Estrada says, what's your opinion on Pegasus and graphite? I don't know what that is. Super Mario says, isn't the rumors that his health is really, really getting bad? Those are the rumors, but, the thing is, pieces of shit like Trump, they tend to live forever. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're like sucking, life force out of hell, directly from hell or some shit like that. I don't know. But yeah, we need to stop hoping and praying that somebody's going to save us. We need instead to do the work. So please do the work, everybody. LeBron James says, do you believe Israel killed Charlie Kirk? No, I do not. Delano says, do you see any immediate gaps in current American resistance? If so, what are they? I just think we need more people. We just need more people doing more things. And it's not just about protesting. It's not just about voting. It's not just about calling your elected representatives. It's not just about forming, mutual aid societies and talking to people in real life. It's all of those things. And we just need more people doing all the different things. Alrighty, let's see here. LeBron James says they did. Well, that's not a question, LeBron James. So please ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Malaya says he'll definitely stay in office till he dies. See you in 2028 when Vance runs. Okay, Malaya, you're doing nothing to assuage my suspicion that you are not here in good faith. David Ross says, so how do you feel about the corruption doge? I feel terrible about it, David Ross. I think I think it's unbelievably corrupt, the Trump administration. It is shocking. It is stunning how corrupt the Trump administration is. And I think that alone should be the reason why no Republican ever wins elected office for the foreseeable future. Because not only are they're letting this happen. Not only are they participating in it, but they're letting it happen. All right. David Ross says, I mean what they found. Oh, so you believe the lies that Elon Musk said that they found a bunch of corruption, but they didn't. So Dan Blackburn says, I appreciate referring to it as the corruption doge. Yeah, what we just learned is that David Ross didn't actually believe that. He believed the opposite. Sushi Politics says, thoughts on the Murdochs being involved in the upcoming TikTok board? I am concerned that basically every major social media channel is being owned and operated by a billionaire, a right-wing billionaire, or Trump lackey. So as skewed as the social media algorithms are, as unproductive and harmful as they are, as easy as they are to manipulate to convince people to vote for Republicans or just not vote at all, it is going to get worse. And so I'm super worried about that. And that just means that we are going to have to do more work to counteract all of that. And I don't like doing more work. I would prefer to do less work. Fog War Production says, how do you think we make our politics kinder? We got to do it ourselves, Fog War Productions, and we got to do it in real life. We got to be the change we want to see in the world. Jacob said, is the notion that Democrats in the 90s were less progressive than now accurate? Yes, Jacob, 100% accurate. I think part of that is that Democrats were getting their asses kicked by the Republicans for 12 years before Bill Clinton won in 92, and so they adopted more conservative policies. But part of that is also that it was, what was that, 40 years ago or some shit? Yeah, 30 years ago-ish. And, people cultures usually become more progressive as they go forward. We're seeing a weird blip of white nationalism and white and Christian nationalism right now, but that's not normally what happens. David Ross says, stop the hate. I agree. Ali N says, are you staying on TikTok post buyout? I mean, this is the place where I get the most eyeballs. So, if I do believe that me doing this is helping. Maybe it's not helping enough, but I do think it's probably helping. And so I'm going to continue doing it even as they shadow ban me and potentially ban me fully from from doing these shows. Dank Force says they get more progressive till they totally fall apart. Nope. Ask a question, Dank Force, or I'm gonna boot you. Delano says, did DT engage in insurrection? I think it's clear that he did. Quito says, we need Amy Lee for president. She understands mental health. I don't know who that is. Malaya says, popcorn for the red wave. Whoa! I can't believe I was right and that you are a troll, Malaya. Wow. Good Lord. I'm fucking 10 out of 10 on calling him. Oh, man. But you're not here. You don't even know. You don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. You're not even hearing that I fucked your mom. Tommy Caldwell says, why do rich people vote for Democrats? Why do rich people like inflation? So if a rich person votes for a Democrat, they are doing that not for their best interest, because the Democratic Party is the party of supporting the working class and raising taxes on the rich. But there are some rich people that vote for Democrats because they believe it's the morally right thing to do. And some rich people, they donate heavily to the Democratic Party, either because they think it's the right thing to do morally or because they want influence. They want to maybe water down the Democrats' pro-worker, pro-99% platform. But the majority of rich people vote for Republicans because Republicans cut their taxes, and they like that. They are greedy people who wish to have all of the money and resources, and so the Republican Party is helping them do that. That's why they support them. Why do rich people like inflation? Because the higher that prices are, there's two reasons why rich people like inflation. First is that when inflation happens naturally, they are then able to raise prices and then claim that that's inflation. So all they're doing is just cutting their bottom line and increasing their own profits, and then they say, oh no, it's the government's fault. It's just inflation. That's number one. Number two is the billionaire class. They want us to be desperate because when we're desperate, we don't have the time, money, or energy to do things that threaten their power, like voting or protesting or striking or boycotting, or even doing things to try to become a more stable financial person, like going to school or getting a different job. They want us desperate so they can force us to do whatever menial jobs, dangerous, degrading jobs that we can't. And they want us to be thankful for it. They want us to be their wage slaves and be, oh my God, thank you so much for this. You're the greatest person in the entire world. Think about the movie Parasite, that dude living under the people's houses. Spoiler alert. His whole thing about like raising people that live above him, that is what the billionaire class wants. They want us to be living on their fucking runoff and food scraps and be crazy like that. So yeah. Scroll down the bottom. Jack says, you wake up in J.D. Vance's body, what's the first thing that you do? Oh boy. I guess apologize to my wife for being part of a racist party. Delano says, J.D. Pritzker is a people billionaire. Yeah, I like J.D., but I mean, I'm not going to say that he is evidence of an ethical billionaire. I think there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. But at least he's doing the work. I'm for any. It's still. Oh boy. Okay, let's see here. Hold on a second, guys. Oh boy, my sound went out. Over on Twitch and YouTube, guys, it won't be as good, I'm sure, but it's better now. I don't know what happened. I was using a new microphone, so yeah. Let me know, guys. Let me know if it's better over there. All right. Brandon Anon says, do you have any examples of a democracy taking back a fascist country without a revolution? I don't specifically, Brandon, but if you check out a political scientist named Erica Chenoweth, she and her team have crunched the numbers on what is the most effective revolution mechanisms, and nonviolent protest movements are infinitely more productive and successful than violent ones. Jack says, why are you always lined up? Do you have a hairstylist behind the scenes? I mean, all of my live streams are up on YouTube, so you can go back and find when I am very much not lined up. So yeah, that's not a real thing. RC Docrat says, do you think we'll ever see term limits? We will, if we vote for politicians who will do that. But there's this weird thing that's been happening in politics for a long time where people don't associate the policy platforms with the political party. So a district will vote for Republicans, up and down the ballots, but they will also vote for a ballot referendum raising the minimum wage or re-enfranchising people that had their votes taken away because they went to prison or some shit like that. So they'll vote for the Democratic platform, but they won't vote for Democrats. And so you can get 70% of the people to agree that there shouldn't be money in politics, that gerrymandering is bad, that we should have term limits and things like that. But then they will go and vote for Republicans, which are the party that is not doing any of that shit. And so part of what I want to do on this platform is to get people to connect the political parties to the platform objectives. So yeah, like we all want to end insider trading in government and get money out of politics and have more accountability and oversight and make the government more efficient and take care of marginalized people and make it so that pregnant women aren't being forced to bleed out in front of hospitals because of some stupid fucking abortion ban. Like we all want that, but for some reason we won't vote for the politicians that will do that for us. You know. All right, Jack says, are you happy with the presidential term last 4 years? If you'd like to change it, then how? I don't know. It seems pretty good to me, a 4-year term. Not too long, not too short. Seems regular to me. Let's see here. Crazy Monsoon says most CEOs of corporations are not Democrats. That is accurate. Brandon says, would you tell Russians to just vote for better politicians? I mean, Putin has fully captured the electoral mechanisms in Russia, so I think it's a little too late for that. I don't know what it's like to live in Russia and be worried about getting fucking disappeared to a Siberian prison camp like what's his name, that that activist that was really popular back in the day. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is for changing the culture and getting more people to fight against Putin within Russia. But I still don't think that violence is the answer, because violence gets weaponized by the fascists in charge as a way to entrench their own power. So they will show you, a government building being exploded by a bunch of left-wing people and say, this is the reason why we need more of the secret police out there stopping the terrorists. It is. I think it's probably connected to the reason why Nixon won the election way back when, is because they saw all these hippies out there in the Weather Underground and shit like that, and they were like, well, we don't want that. We want a regular time instead. But I'm not a historian, so yeah. Ready? Yeah, I wonder what happened to the sound over there. Navalny, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. Nivimat says, do most people realize that the Trump administration is using Christianity to manipulate people? I think most people do realize that, but for a lot of people, it is not a deal breaker for them. That's another weird thing that we see in political polling, whereas people will be like, we know Trump's a liar. We know he's a piece of shit. We know he's corrupt, but I just really, really want to bring prices down, shit like that. And that is the product of billionaire misinformation and propaganda. That stuff doesn't matter. Like his corruption and his, graping of women and his racism doesn't matter. But the Republican Party will bring prices down, and that is obviously a lie. Like we've seen it time and time again that's a lie. That the Democrats are better for the economy, and they are the ones that are actually trying to bring prices down. Righty, Val says, what's your take on Trump's comments to the UN today? That was a doozy. I mean, he's an idiot. He's so fucking stupid and transparent. It's just, yeah. It's just more of the same, It's the same old shit. It's so fucking boring. It's so fucking rote. It's so fucking stupid. Alrighty, Delano says, it is Tad Stormer in your radar. He's got a neat book coming out. No, I don't know who that is. Crazy Monsoon says, haven't most of the wars of the last 2,000 years been caused by Christians? I don't know about that. It's possible, I suppose. Val says, what's your take on Trump? Oh, I did that one already. Kay says, I don't think there's any line he could cross that they wouldn't overlook. Do you? Yeah, 100%. Because we do not judge the Republican Party as harshly as we should. And we are overly harsh judgers of the Democratic Party. And that, again, is the product of decades of billionaire propaganda and misinformation being shoved into our noodles. Tad Stormer left the country. Oh, I don't know who that is. Yeah, I need to give that guy a Google or something. Jack says, what year did you graduate high school? Oh, you're trying to figure out how old of a person I am? Boy, oh boy, you're not going to believe this. It was so fucking long ago. It was It was not even the year 2000 yet that I graduated from high school. You know, dinosaurs roamed the earth. It was 97. Shork says, "Do you think no political violence helps?" I do think that no political violence helps. Let's see. Jack. No, that's fine, Jack. Don't worry about it. Strawberry emoji says, "My noodles?" Question mark. Oh, I when I say noodles, I mean people's brains. You know, that's my really cute way of saying that. Kay says, "Really? I thought you were like 40. I'm 46." So, if you want to know why I look so young, it's because I waited tables for 12 years, and when you work on your feet, you age slower. That is scientifically been proven. Everybody that works at restaurants for a long time, they generally look about 10 years younger than they actually are. Alrighty. Short says, "What if someone got Trump?" I don't condone any kind of political violence whatsoever. Higgins, spell dangler, noodle, use your noodle, noodle, do the noodle dance. Alrighty. P1 says, "What's your take on the Supreme Court rolling over like train dogs for this administration?" It makes perfect sense. You know, you got Thomas and Alito, who are extreme right wing hacks and have been for a long time. And then you've got the other three conservative justices who were put there by Trump. So obviously they're going to do whatever the fuck he tells them to do, you know? Yeah, it's so fucking clear. Like, and if you listen to podcasts like Strict Scrutiny, they fully outline how there is literally no legal doctrine right now except Trump gets what Trump wants. The Republican Party gets what Trump wants. Ketanji Brown Jackson had a great opinion about that recently, where she said it's like Calvin Ball. There is no rules except for Trump always gets what he wants. Brandon Anon says, "Do you support the Nuremberg trials?" I mean, they happened a while ago. You know, I don't know too much about it. Let's see here. Philip Hart says, "Wonder how many on the right think Alexander the Great was a great warrior." I mean, I don't know if he was or wasn't. And I'm on the left, so I don't know if we can extrapolate from that. CC Cold says, "What do you think about a dual democracy referendum that is a mix between direct and elective democracy?" I mean, we kind of have that already with ballot referendums, don't we, CC Cold, depending on what state you're living in? Suji Politics says, "With the domestic terrorist organization Next Nation, do you think protesters will be targeted?" 100%. Absolutely. That's the reason why he's already doing it. He sent the military into Los Angeles because of the protests that were happening there. He has the military presence in D.C. is about stopping people from protesting at the White House and on the National Mall and shit like that. Yeah, you know, all of the things that they are doing because they said that they're doing it because of the Charlie Kirk assassination, they were going to do it anyways. This is their new Reichstag fire, you know? Let's see here. CC Coles is on a federal level. I don't believe it's gotten past the state level. Oof. Yeah, you know, I think it's possible. I think it's a potentially a good idea. I worry about things like Brexit happening over here where, you know, people don't always vote great. And so if we are voting on specific issues on a national level, I can see that going wrong depending on, you know, what the current world events were recently and billionaire propaganda, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see here. Philip Hart says, "I say that because a lot of people don't know that Alexander the Great also had homosexual activities." Ooh, interesting, Philip Hart. Yeah, I did not know that. I'm not a historian, especially not of ancient history, is I believe what that qualifies as, right? Average Joe PG, great to see you again. It's the Rocketeer. Yes, that is accurate. Do you think Trump supporters ever experience secondhand embarrassment, or does their lack of shame and empathy prevent that from happening? I do think there are. I mean, there's the MAGA is not one thing. As much as the Republican Party is, you know, way more of a monolith than the Democratic Party is, there are a lot of different flavors of people that vote for Donald Trump. Like, if you're part of the MAGA cult, like, I don't think that there's anything that's going to drag you out of that, save, you know, like a deprogramming. But yeah, people that vote Republican are often on the record saying that they are embarrassed by Trump's behavior or that they regret their vote and you know, stuff like that. Alrighty. Philip Hart says, "I'm 69, my friend, and I do a lot of reading." Nice. Jack says, "Did you ever cut any family members out of your life over politics?" I have, and I actually kind of regret it. Like, I wish that I had instead engaged, but that was during the 2020s, and I was much more of the way that we save people from being part of the right is by there being social consequences to being on the right. And I don't think that is a productive strategy any longer, you know. So So yeah, but I also don't think that I'm not going to force people to engage with their MAGA uncles if that is a toxic and damaging thing for them to do to themselves psychologically. Alrighty, let's see here. Swiftly Engage says there's a TikTok from the Kirk Memorial showing estimated 60% of people leaving as Trump spoke. Oh, that's always glad to hear that. Stephen Watson says everyone knows Alexander the Great was gay. It just wasn't a big deal. It's not hidden or shameful. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's see here. New haircut looking fresh. Thank you, Swiftly Engaged. Kay says the social consequences seem to embolden them at a certain point. Yeah, I've heard this argument that when you push people away for being right wing, it just makes them more extreme. And I don't know how accurate that is, but I will say that uh, that being a mechanism that does exist is part of the reason why the billionaire class gets us fighting amongst ourselves on the internet. Because, if you're a person out there who thinks if I get like shamed by a person on the left, then I'm going to go to the right because they're more accepting of me, then why wouldn't a billionaire pay a bunch of people to go online and say that they're leftists and then do a bunch of purity tests and push people away to go to the right, let's see here. Philip Hart, hates breed, hate my brother. Go to the Midwest and down south, and you'll see what I mean. I've been there. I've been to the Midwest and down south. I'm a touring stand-up comedian. Mia Zelby Adventure says, "Do you think Jimmy Kimmel is going to apologize tonight? I hope he doesn't. I also hope that he doesn't." And just based on the kind of person, the kind of comedy that he's done during his life, it seems unlikely that he will. But I don't know. I don't know what he talked to Disney about to get back on the air. Jack says, "You're more political than I am. What's Biden been doing all this time? I haven't seen him in a while." I mean, I don't know if you heard the news about Biden, but he is extremely old and he has prostate cancer. So I'm sure that he is just trying to enjoy his golden years and potentially get treatment for, his prostate cancer. Alrighty. Oreo20 says, "Why SCOTUS approved firing of FTC government Lisa Cook without evidence of fraud?" So, Oreo, I could be wrong about this, but I think that what happened with SCOTUS was what's called the shadow docket, meaning that they don't actually decide on whether it's okay to fire Lisa Cook because they haven't taken up that case yet because they don't believe they're in session at the moment. But what they do is they say, until we can get to this case, this is what the ruling is going to be. I'm like 80% accurate. I believe that I'm 80% sure that I'm being accurate in describing it this way. So they didn't approve Lisa Cook's firing. They said until we can get to this case, Lisa Cook can be effectively removed from her job. Which, there are a lot of arguments about the shadow docket as a way of the Supreme Court just doing whatever the fuck they want without having to explain, and regardless of the consequences of that, it's going to be really hard to undo all the damage of Lisa Cook not being there for however many months or years until the Supreme Court can get to that fucking case. But yeah, the reason why they did it is because they're Republican lackeys. And they will do whatever Donald Trump and the Republican Party want. Jack says, "What's something you'd like to accomplish before your 50th birthday?" Unelecting every Republican, Jack. Dave on Caffeine says, "Do you know what all the other previous presidents are doing?" I mean, I'm sure Obama, I believe, is deeply involved in non-governmental organizations that are trying to get more people involved in politics, specifically empowering people from marginalized communities. I'm not like, an Obama stan. I'm not following his every move, but that's kind of like what I saw on social media as the things that he was doing. Jimmy Carter passed away, so he's not doing nothing. George W. Bush is painting, and I think that's basically all the living non-presidents right now, right? Let's see here. Nancy says, "No, I hope he will not apologize to Trump. Trump, what goes around comes around. Eat more burgers." Agree with that. Fletch Lives Again says, "Best president of your lifetime? Definitely Obama. I think, I think that the Biden administration was incredible, but based on Jake Tapper's book, I have a lot of issues with the way that him and his team handled his age issue and his re-election campaign." Crazy Monsoon says, "You forgot Bill Clinton." Yeah, Bill Clinton. What is he doing? He's probably too old to be sexually harassing interns anymore. Let's see here. Whoa! Holy shit! Some breaking news, guys, from It's the Rocketeer over on Twitch. The dude who shot at Trump on his golf course, which I don't think he actually got a shot off. I think he just had the gun. Just stabbed himself in the neck after his verdict was read, according to CBS. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Woo! Boy, oh boy. Okay. Let's see. All right, guys, we're about an hour. Get your final questions in. All right. All right, everybody, get your final questions in. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Let's see here. Stephen Watton says that the dude was George W. Bush's finger painting the bathroom stalls. Good Lord. Marie says, "Why do you think former presidents are not speaking out against Trump?" I mean, they are. I don't know how many times or I don't know what Clinton has said or done, but Biden I think is busy having prostate cancer, and but Obama has said a bunch of stuff about speaking out against Trump. I think W. Bush even has come out to say things against Trump. Jacob Vargas says, "Do you think that Cambridge Analytica impacted the 2016 elections?" I do. That's a little bit, it was 10 years ago, so I'm not really up on the details, but I remember thinking that they did. Jack says he is not in a great place mentally, and I hope something like that doesn't happen. Yeah, I don't know who you're referring to. Let's see here. Will Gavin Newsom increase the Supreme Court justices when elected? I don't know, but that is something that I would really love to know what he thinks on that. I'm sure that will influence how he does in the primary elections. Jacob Dominguez says, "Hey, is there a compendium of information that I can use for family because I have some Trumpers?" So, Jacob, the unfortunate reality is that data and facts does not change people's minds. Even if you have the most irrefutable facts and you give them to somebody, odds are it will just cause them to dig in deeper to their, prior established beliefs. If you really are interested in talking to MAGA family members and trying to get them out of misinformation pipelines, it's hard. And it is a long and hard and difficult process. If you're interested in doing that, there's a book called The Persuaders that I would recommend you checking out. The author's name is Anand Giridharadas. Godspeed. I do think it is important for us to be engaging with our family members because there is a level of legitimacy that they grant you, being that they know you and love you and raised you and trust you to some extent. So yeah, but I mean, if you are just trying to do the most productive work to try to make sure that the midterms go okay, you could do a lot more than trying to convert one MAGA person. I think there are a lot of squishy Republican voters and soft independent voters and non-voters that would be easier to convince to vote for Democratic House representatives and Democratic senators than converting your MAGA family. But if you decide to do that, fucking go for it, man. God bless you. Goober the Bum says, "Are you a liberal?" I don't know if I technically classify as a liberal. I call myself a progressive Democrat. That seems to be the most accurate to me. Some people think that makes me a liberal. Some people think that makes me a leftist. I don't really, discern the semantic differences between those two things. Jacob Barra says, "Why does the algorithm in social media benefit the right?" I believe it is for a couple of reasons. Number one, what we have discovered is that rage keeps people on social media, and social media companies want you to stay on longer, and so they will push content that is designed to get you mad and get people fighting amongst themselves. But also, every social media platform is owned by a rich person, and a rich person is then going to benefit from Republicans being in charge, because Republicans will cut regulations to their companies and cut their taxes, making them all the more rich and powerful, which is stuff that they want. So, additionally, even if you're a billionaire who does not own the social media platforms, if you have a lot of money, it is really easy to manipulate the algorithm. There are ways that you can pay for content to be pushed that does not get labeled as advertisement, and billionaires are doing that. If you look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, my feed is
90% politics. It's 90% politics and cute animals that I showed to my wife. During the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, I was getting tons and tons and tons of clips of Amber Heard's lawyers being incompetent and, you know, her testimony being silly or weird or whatever. And what we discovered was that Johnny Depp had hired a PR firm to turn that into a social media fiasco for Amber Heard. And we saw that during the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively thing, that they both hired their own PR firms to try to manipulate the algorithm to make the other person seem like a shitty person. And so where billionaires can manipulate the algorithm to help Republican politicians, they have and they will continue to do so. Trolley Car Coffee says, you have no proof against the MAGA of disinformation or misappropriation. I don't think that is a good faith question that you're asking there, Trolley Car Coffee. If you want to engage in good faith, send me a DM or anything like that. But I do not believe that you will be swayed by anything that I tell you here today. All right, Fog of War Production says, bot farming scares the hell out of me, to be honest. Yeah, it scares the hell out of me too. And we know it works. You know, we know that it works. We only listen to one source, and that's X. That's where we get the truth daily. So you only listen to one source, and you think that you have the benefit of somebody who gets their news from a bunch of different sources. Okay, bro. Cole Duncan says, do you think Mondani will be terrible? No, I think it'll be great. I think that the billionaire class is going to try to make it seem like he's terrible, both before and after the election. If he wins, they are going to torpedo his agenda, make it really difficult for him to do anything, and then they are going to hire people to write op-eds about how, you know, Mamdani is feckless and ineffective and progressivism doesn't work because look at Mamdani, he's failing New York State, you know, failing New York City, et cetera, et cetera. Trolley Car Coffee says it's 95% truthful and accurate. Well, you know what else is 90% truthful and accurate? My dick going into your mom's pussy. All right. Cole Duncan says, I want to see New York fail if he's elected. Well, that is also not a good faith argument right there. Alrighty. Fog War Productions says, my sources are Jared and the voices in my head. I mean, I would trust the voices in your head. Cephalon says, it is important for all of us to do our own research and validate sources. Yes, that is accurate. All right, everybody, get your final questions in. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me in my live stream. And, you know, I'm trying to get these messages out to as many people as possible. So I really hope that you guys help. I hope that you guys will help be part of the crusade of getting the good information to people, of hyping up good channels, of, you know, doing the work of trying to unelect every Republican, because I just don't see how things get better if we just keep on rewarding them with re-election time and time again, regardless of all the damage that they are doing, the corruption that they are turning a blind eye to, the violence and divisive rhetoric that they are enabling. Like, we need to do the work of getting people to recognize the value of voting for Democrats over Republicans. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And if there are any questions that come up when I'm not live streaming, my DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can join my Discord. You can reach me there. I do not want to. I want to be a resource for you guys. You know, the project of unelecting every Republican politician is not something that stops for me when the live stream is down. So if there's a way that I can be a resource for you, I want you guys to use me and abuse me until I am all used up. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know we're all struggling these days, but if you want to, you can. You can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and link to that is in my bio. You can also buy things from my store on my website, and you can, you know, send gifts and shit on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. And I think there's a thing called Super Fans on TikTok. That is like a way that you can subscribe to my live streams and stuff like that. So yeah. And the Discord is a great resource as well if you want recommendations for books or podcasts or things that you can do to help. But I am just desperately hoping that all of you out there are part of the coalition and are doing the work. So let's see here. Cephalon says, don't always agree with you, but do enjoy your content. Thank you, Cephalon. Cuz 808 says, have you ever ran a fade with a Samoan? I don't know what that means, Cuz 808, but I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Jago Vargas says, is Marjorie Greene trying to do some image makeup to seek higher office? You know, I don't know. I think, you know, she is so obviously like conspiracy pilled that it seems weird to me when she says things that I agree with. So yeah, I don't know. I think that there's also a wing of the Republican Party that is in the business of turning themselves into fake populists. Like Josh Hawley and Marjorie Taylor Greene will go out there and say that that politicians should not be able to trade stocks, but then they will get elected and cut taxes for the rich. Like fake populism bullshit. Alrighty, let's see here. Scrolling up. Info Warrior says, once again, never DM'd me back. Info Warrior, I did not see your DM. Email me through our website. If you don't get me on DMs, then email me through our website or go to my Discord, and I will see it in one of those places. Alrighty. Dave on Caffeine says, AM bot farming is easy when the general population doesn't know fact from fiction. That is accurate. Rena says only 95%. I mean, we have to allow for some, we have to allow for some, what the fuck is the word I'm looking for? This joke would have been a lot better we have to allow for some margin of error, All right, everybody. Let's see here. Yoda Golf says, why did Kamala do so bad? She only had 100 days for her campaign, and usually people take more than 2 years to do presidential campaigns. So she only had 100 days. The political climate was skewed against the Democratic Party because of incumbency bias, and there was a record amount of dark money being pushed into social media channels to promote Republican candidates or convince people just to not vote. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Diego Vargas, thoughts on Destiny debating conservatives now kind of new turning points. I don't think debates are productive. I've never thought that debates are productive. I shouldn't say never. It has been a long time since I have thought that debates could be even a little bit productive. And I don't love everything that Destiny says. But again, I find that people on the left who are popular, who are doing this kind of content, are a net positive on the zeitgeist, on the culture. Insert synonym here. All right, everybody. Thanks again for being here. Thanks again for the support. Do the work, everybody. Do the work with me. Don't let me do it alone, guys. I will get lonely. So do the work and do your self-care. Remember, self-care is part of the work. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you guys here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat.